Greek Gods and Goddesses. The story of Demeter. In ancient times, the Greeks were very devoted to their beliefs. The ancient Greeks were polytheistic. That means they were religious people who worshipped many gods. They are named after their dwelling place, Mount Olympus, the highest peak in Greece. The Olympians are a group of 12 Greek gods who ruled after the overthrow of the Titans. All the Olympians are related in some way. The majority of these gods represented various elements of nature. Legends and myths of the gods and their accomplishments tend to explain the phenomenon and occurrences of winds, rains, storms, life, and deaths. Some gods include Zeus, god of the skies, Poseidon, god of the sea, and Hades, god of death. Like I mentioned earlier, legends and myths of the gods tend to explain the phenomenon and occurrences of natural events. Have you ever wondered how the seasons were created? Well, it all started with one young goddess named Demeter. She is the daughter of Titans Kronos and Rhea, and sister of Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Hera, and Hestia. She is the goddess of agriculture and the seasons. As goddess of harvest, she took care of all the plants in the world. The weather was always fine, and there were always harvests all year long. But let me start from the beginning. When the Titans Kronos and Rhea began to have children, Kronos was given a prophecy, or a prediction, by Gaia and Uranus, that one of his children would take his throne and take his power. Thinking that he could challenge destiny, Kronos began to swallow his children as they were born. Demeter was swallowed along with Hera, Poseidon, Hades, and Hestia. When it came time for her sixth child to be born, Rhea substituted a stone for the infant, and Kronos was tricked into swallowing the stone instead of the child. Thus, Zeus was hidden from Kronos and allowed to secretly grow up on the island of Crete. To avenge the mistreatment of his mother and free his brothers and sisters, Zeus ambushed Kronos. The attack was so violent that the 5 swallowed up children, including Demeter, were spewed out from inside Kronos. Kronos and the other Titans immediately understood the threat that Demeter and her siblings represented. The War of the Titans began. After the dust and fire subsided, Zeus, Demeter, Hera, Poseidon, Hades, and Hestia ascended Mount Olympus and established their domination of heaven and earth. Demeter became the goddess of the harvest. She gave men the seeds and knowledge to make their crops grow. Demeter is best known for her defense of her daughter Persephone. Persephone's father was Zeus. Demeter had been one of his early wives, long before his marriage to Hera. Persephone was an obedient, cheerful girl who had a happy childhood, playing with her cousins Artemis and Athena. Reaching adolescence, she was carefree and spirited, often dancing playfully and picking wild flowers in the meadow near her home. Demeter loved her daughter very much, and she was always full of joy when Persephone was near. When the goddess of the harvest was happy, the whole world bloomed with life. The fields and orchards were always full of crops to be harvested. One day, while picking flowers in the fields, Hades, her uncle, the god of the underworld, noticed her. He fell in love instantly. Quickly, before anyone could interfere, he kidnapped Persephone and hurled his chariot down into the darkest depths of the underworld, taking Persephone with him. Persephone cried and cried. She refused to speak to Hades, and she refused to eat. Legend said if you ate anything in the underworld, you could never leave. She did not know if the legend was true, but she did not want to risk in case someone came to rescue her. Nearly a week went by. Finally, unable to bear her hunger, Persephone ate 6 pomegranate seeds. It seemed her fate was sealed. She would have to live in the underworld forever. Although Persephone grew to love Hades, she remained lonely for her mother and the life she'd known on Earth. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Demeter was miserable. She missed her daughter. She was not able to care for the crops. She was not able to do anything much except cry. Zeus, king of all the gods, was worried about the crops. The people would die if the crops failed. If that happened, who would worship Zeus? He had to do something. Zeus did what he often did. He sent Hermes, his youngest son, the messenger, to crack a deal, this time with Hades. When Hermes heard that Persephone had eaten 6 pomegranate seeds, he had to think quickly. The deal he made with Hades was that if Persephone would marry Hades, she would live as queen of the underworld for 6 months out of the year. However, each spring, Persephone would return and live on Earth for the other 6 months of the year. Though not happy, Hades agreed. Zeus agreed, Persephone agreed, and finally, Demeter agreed. Persephone returned to her mother, and each spring, Demeter makes sure all the flowers bloom in welcome when her daughter, Queen of the Underworld, returns to her. Each fall, when Persephone returns to Hades, Demeter cries and lets all the crops die until spring, when the cycle starts all over again.